Good evening and welcome to the City of Cross Lake Council meeting, Monday, October 8th. I will call the meeting to order and we will begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As usual, we do have some additions to the agenda, and so at this time, I need a motion from the council to add those to our consent calendar.
I'll make that motion.
Dave Nevin first,
I'll second it.
Dave Schrupp second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And then we do have the consent calendar, and as always, it is filled with lots of information. All items here listed are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted by in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or council member so requests. So is there a motion on the floor to accept the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Dave Schrupp first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dave Nevin, second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. At 7:15 or shortly after, we do have a public hearing, and so at that time, I will suspend the council meeting. We will go through the public meeting, and then when that is through, we will resume our council meeting. So we will continue on our agenda under critical issues. And the first one is high-tech construction, and this is an update on the old fire hall and the old school property. And so, Mr. High-Tech, if you want to come up to the podium, please.
I guess you are first, Craig.
Give your name and give your name and address, please.
I'm Craig Fearbin. I've been a contractor in the area for 30 years now. I got asked to come up and look at the two buildings next to us here. Just kind of a quick, what do they look like and are they well built? And the first thing I always look at is the workmanship. If the building looks professionally built on the outside and exterior, it usually follows through the whole project. And then you look at it if it's structurally sound. Has it got a solid foundation? Is there any cracks? Is there any sheetrock falling apart? Is there any obvious delimitation or anything like that? And looking at these buildings across the street, they look good and clean. The roofs are straight. The workmanship looks professional. The foundation is solid. I did get a set of plans, blueprints, and I looked them over, but the blueprints are very vague. And if you're really to get into it, you'd have to start tearing sheeting off the walls to see what's there and what's not. The second thing I always look at, or the third, is the water damage. Is there any water damage in the building? Is it your odors, mildew, things like that? We remodeled hundreds of these buildings, and that's a lot of the stuff you find, and that's what's going to deteriorate the building. And it didn't look like any obvious water damage to me. No stains on the walls. Pretty clean deal.
Hey, Craig, can I interrupt you for
Yeah,
a second? I
yeah.
should have introduced him. Craig went up to look at the property next door, the old school building and the old fire hall, based on our special meeting that we had the 21st September. And so the council asked me to see if I could get a hold of a contractor to come look at the building, and so that's what this is. I should have done that introduction
sorry.
before. Well, no, I didn't.
But like I say, there's no stains on the wall, pretty clean construction. The floors are flat. And then you look at like the structurally, as far as the floor joists and everything else, it's solid. They're nice buildings. The outside looks good. They look like they're reasonably maintained.
One thing we talked about was, possibly underground parking on the one end.
Oh, easily.
We did look at that.
Yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be easily done to put any garage doors or additions or anything onto that, I'm not a structural engineer, and I'm not an electrical engineer or mechanical engineer. I didn't look at any of the furnaces or anything, but as far as the buildings themselves, they're in very good shape. I don't think they're that old. What is it?
15, I think.
15 years? I mean, they'd be here
Yeah.
for another 80 years. So keep good roofs on them.
Okay, good.
That's,
Craig, thanks a lot for
Thank
coming
you.
up.
yep.
Thank you. Then, the next thing under critical issues is a request to alter city logo for new pickleball courts at the community center. And we have a representative. Please give your name and address, please.
I thought we were gonna.
Good evening. My name is Pam Graves. I live at 14131 Sugarloaf Road in Cross Lake. I don't wish to alter the logo, but in the last meeting I was at, I was looking at the logo and we're trying to come up with an identifying image for pickleball here in Cross Lake. There's a big expansion of pickleball in the whole region, from Hackensack to Aiken to Baxter, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, and we were looking for an identity. And one of the identities that we had come up with as we sat around waiting to play was the dam. And I'm sitting here looking at this wall saying, they've got a dam, they've got Cross Lake. Why should we spend $700 to $1,500 for a graphic designer to come up with a logo if we could maybe modify, in concept only, for pickleball purposes? I've got it.
Okay.
Change the image here, make sure it's, so, how do I bring this up to, so people are reading some of the language there. If we actually spent the money, is there a zoom out or? How about the wide or? So what we were thinking about, just very briefly, without spending any money between two of us, was to put a pickleball in the Eagles' Talons and have the dam here, but not hide the fact that we wanted to be maybe the best pickleball place by a dam site, if you pardon the pun. And we made sure that there was only 3 letters in the dam and have the dam there as a functioning edifice that people recognize in this area. So what we were looking for was sort of an endorsement of the concept to use the City of Cross Lake's logo, modify it. You would have approval, but we thought about using it on maybe a Facebook page. People are using Facebook pages all the time for pickleball schedules, letting people in the region know. We know people that already come up here from Baxter to play pickleball, and they want to know when is it. We might have some tournaments here. We might have T-shirts, then people would identify Cross Lake as a place to come for pickleball. We could even get little buttons or pins as we go to festivals, and people want to know. We were just down in Kansas City, and they're like, "You're from Cross Lake? I mean, how many people do you have in Cross Lake?" And we were all over the place. So if we had an image that would complement that, we thought it would be great. So we're looking for endorsement to not abuse, but use.
Okay, before we have a motion on the floor, are there any comments or questions?
I don't see any harm in that.
A family member was looking over my shoulder this morning, and she thought it was a good idea. Okay, I can't say too much, but then I saw the sheet show up on my desk, and she said, "How about something that said, 'It's a big dill'?" And a pickle instead of a ball. Anyways,
Well,
that's all.
We have one player
You do.
actually who very much dislikes, we have a pickle that comes to our matches.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He won't say he doesn't like it, but we thought about maybe hiding one in the trees here and seeing if you would notice that there was really a dill there.
Any other comments or questions for Pam? If not, can we entertain a motion to approve the altered city logo for the new pickleball courts?
I'll make that motion.
Gary Hecox first. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So following up that D1, where are we going to get into a little?
Not until 7:15. We can't do it until 15.
Okay, okay.
No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on the agenda of a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address, and each speaker is given a 3-minute time limit, and that is for the public forum. So are there any comments?
Pat Netco, Cross Lake resident and business owner. I hope that we are able to, I did attend the meeting earlier today, and I hope that we are able to have more discussion about the property next door with the old fire hall and the old school. I just think there's an opportunity there that we don't want to miss, and I would like to see there be more of a study done by encouraging what we've already spent 3/4 of the money on. Basically, I agree with what Dan Hagerston said about keeping the EMS, keeping the fire stalls that we have, making this all the fire station, and figuring out a way to put police and city hall next door. And the buildings are sound structurally. Could we figure out how much it would cost to do the remodeling of those compared to the millions of dollars spent on rebuilding here? I'd like to see what that would cost. And I would also like to definitely see there be more public input on this. And I agree with Jim Anderson, and I agree that there should be some public input on why we need to do this. The mold issue, to me, is #1 priority. Get rid of that. But I think the public needs to know this, especially when our property taxes are going to go up and how much that's going to go up and the finances of all this. And I think that that's paramount to making this decision before the council makes a decision on anything going forward. So I would love to see there be more study of what it would cost to remodel the buildings next door to what the needs are, make this whole area on the road for the fire department, and then go forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from public forum? And there is not a mayor's report tonight. It's not quite 7:15, and we do have to wait until 7:15 for the public forum. So, Mike, do you want to go ahead with your first item on the agenda?
Sure. Item G1 under my agenda is a resolution approving this issuance of up to $690,000 of general obligation street reconstruction bonds, Series 218A, and that's for the Manhattan Point project. And what this resolution will do, because today is Columbus Day, we couldn't have a pricing event. What this will do is it'll allow the mayor and myself to obligate us to get pricing favorable to the city on bonds that we could bring back to the council on the 22nd for approval to issue bonds if it's favorable to the city. And then we would have an anticipated closing date of around November 1st. So this was what you would call a trigger resolution to authorize us to do that.
Are there any comments or questions before we have a motion on the floor? And we have talked about this before at our budget meetings and at our council meetings.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Gary Hecox, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Are there any more comments or questions before?
What is the road project that the bonds are for?
Manhattan Point.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, I missed that, sorry.
okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. The second item on my agenda is, it says update on union negotiations. What that really means is we've been notified by both unions of the intent to negotiate the contracts for AFSCME and for Teamsters, both of which expire at the end of this year. And looking for volunteers from the council, along with the attorney and probably myself as a middle person between the council and the attorney to negotiate those two contracts. So we're going to need to schedule some times and come up with a negotiating committee.
Do you want volunteers this evening, or are you looking further
That
into
would
the
be
road?
ideal if I could have 2 council members.
Brad
would wanna
Nelson,
participate in
are
that.
you available for this? I think you are quite
It's next year.
knowledgeable.
It's next year.
It's next year?
It's this fall.
Are you sure?
It's in
Positive.
December.
No carry.
Very limited time schedule is the only thing that, but yes, I would be
What month?
Will
available.
you be available? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. And you want another volunteer?
Yes.
Do you have any dates?
I'm waiting to hear back from AFSCME with potential dates on negotiations, and we'd set that up with our labor attorney. We don't have a list of requests from either union at this point, only an intent to negotiate at this point. So we need to get back to them with, here's who our team is, and here's some available dates.
Gary, are you available?
Yeah, I'll try that.
Okay, great. Thank
When
you.
is it?
Thank you to
December?
you both.
You think?
November,
Well, I can do it again.
I only need 2.
Oh, you-
I've got Brad as a volunteer and
And
Gary.
Gary.
oh,
Okay,
okay.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else, Mike?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we will suspend this part of the agenda, and I will turn it over to Alex.
Yes.
And Alex, you'll have to give us your name and last name.
Yes.
I didn't get that, sorry.
Yes, my name is Alex Kuhn. I'm filling in for Brad Person today regarding the application from John Schultz for vacation of right-of-way at 11874 Manhattan Point Boulevard. You'll have to bear with me here in turn. Do I have to, should I just give?
Yes, do you want to step up to the microphone, maybe, so everybody can hear you
Yeah.
and go through the information here?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay?
Yeah, and I'm told that John is available today.
Yes.
So as I've indicated, we're here for a road vacation. From the city standpoint, the standard is if the road doesn't serve a city purpose or serve as a city benefit, that it's in the best interest of the city to vacate. Here, well, from a procedural aspect first, there's the relevant statute is Minnesota Statute 412.851. There's some procedural things that needs to be done in order to get this road vacation. They need to have public, there's been a publication, which I do have on file here. Yes, I have that, as well as affidavit of mailing indicating, notifying all relevant, all interested parties, homeowners, owners, and that, I have that with me as well. So it would appear just solely from a procedural standpoint that the application is appropriate. Now looking at a survey which was also done indicating the road vacation, I don't know, if maybe this colored one might be better, or maybe. You can certainly put it up. Okay. So I've highlighted on this survey, the yellow is what the road vacation is that's what the application is for. And the green is what the Schultz is willing to deed to the city in order to have essentially access to the lake there. So not necessarily required in terms of a road vacation of deeding another portion of the property, but something Mr. Schultz is willing to do. And so like I've said, from a city standpoint, it would appear to be appropriate to vacate this road that's in the application, given that, and maybe John can come up here and even indicate that, in the application, it looks like it's been around since, the house has been around since 1961 or something like that?
We bought the property in '61, but I believe the house was built in the '30s.
Okay, so,
Excuse me. If you could, the applicants, probably be a good idea for you guys to come up and explain what you're trying to do here, state your name and your address, and I think it will help them to make a decision.
Okay. John Schultz, Here we're at 11874 Manhattan Point Boulevard. My permanent address is in Dilworth, Minnesota. As you can see there, my parents bought this property in 1961. I think they knew at that time that that road went through the middle, and they were pretty much told that if it needed to be moved, they would swap the 20 feet. 61 and 2018 is a little different as far as legal matters at that time. My father passed away in '94. My mother passed away just this past year. She was the sole owner of the property. And so I became executor of the estate. And so at this point in time, we decided since whatever happens, we would need to change the deed and all the other legal matters. This is a good time to clear up the problem of the public assets running through the middle of the property. Our goal is to have a continuous 120-foot property and in exchange give the city the 20 feet on the east side of the land. I know some people have been out to look at it. It is much, as far as public access, it is a much better piece of land. You could pretty much walk from the road to the lake without using any steps, whereas where it is now, it's a good 45 steps from the bluff down to the lake. So if you're going to use it as a public access, it's a much better piece of land. We're not asking to vacate the land entirely, mainly to just swap the land. The city has the 20 feet on the east side of the land in exchange for us having the 20 feet in the middle.
I do have some pictures for those of you that maybe were not able to get out there. I went down a few weeks ago and took some photos. You can see when you come into the driveway, here's a flag here and here's another flag. This is the right-of-way. So you come in on their driveway and the right-of-way goes down. It kind of goes at an angle like this down to there. If you walk into the yard and look back up at those same stakes, this is what you're looking up, towards the road. This line goes right just past the edge of the cabin here. This cabin is not in the right-of-way, but it's right next to it. This little lean-to that they have, or this little thing is actually partially in that right-of-way. When you get down to where it drops off and it's the bluff, this is what you would have to walk down, either their steps that they have here or figure out a way. Here's one of the flags right here. Now it's hard to see up on the screen, but there's a flag right here, and the other flag is right about here on the other side of the building. So the majority of that building is in the right-of-way. And I think this one really shows this right here is the right-of-way. So between my fingers and up the hill they've built right in the middle of it.
And that was built when?
I believe my father started the lower part of that cabin, the concrete block part. I believe it was 1967 when that was started. He capped it off. I think it was finished in 69 or 70. I was in the Army then and out of country, and I think it was either 69 or 70 when we finished the rest of the building.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Is there any other information that you have that you'd like to?
I have nothing further.
Okay.
Nothing further.
Okay. So before we have a motion on the floor, are there any questions or comments?
Both commissions recommended approval.
Yes, both the Park and Rec Commission recommended the approval and the Public Works recommended approval.
Just a procedure question. Do you need to open it up for public comment? It is a public hearing.
Is there any comments from our public audience tonight? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Dave Schrupp.
I'll second.
Brad Nelson, second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we will resume our council meeting, And we will move on to commission reports, and the first one is planning and zoning.
Good evening. I have two items, the first, and they're both related. The first one is the Planning Commission, we went through the process of public hearing to update some of the land use ordinance. In your packet, it shows what the items are. The majority of the items in the packet are administrative. A lot of it has to do with the FEMA changes that we had last August, and FEMA and the DNR asking us to update our definitions and some other information that's in there. Really, the two big things that are changes, significant changes, the first one I've started right here is the water-oriented accessory structures. We would like you to make the change that in the future, any walled structure that is used as that shed down by the lake, if it has walls on it, it's going to be required to have a 412 pitch on top. And what that'll do is it'll keep people from putting a patio or a deck on top of the building, which you're allowed one use, and the one use is the shed. If you want a deck, you can build a deck, but you can't have both. So that is the one change there. And the other change is on fences. We've had a lot of people say, I want to put a fence around my garden. The way the ordinance is written right now, if you want to put any kind of fence up in your yard, doesn't matter where it's at, you need a permit. You need to have a compliance inspection for your septic system. It can get very expensive very fast. We would like to realign the fence definition and the requirements for a fence to be more like what the county says. We still will preclude and we won't allow fences down in that shore impact zone 1 right next to the lake. But if, once you get back from behind the setback, and if you're more than 5 feet off the property line or more than 15 feet off the road, it no longer is a fence, and you no longer need to have a permit for it. If you're on the property line or you're out close to the road, you still will be required to get a permit for your fence. So those are the items. If there's any questions that any of you have on any of the other items that are on there, certainly be willing to answer them right now.
Are there any questions or comments for John? If not, I'd like a motion on the floor revising the portions of the chapters just related to.
Correct, as submitted.
As
And then the
submitted.
only thing maybe we could add to that is that it will become effective when it's published, because that
Okay,
that
so,
is
but we need
required.
two motions on that, the first one and then the
Can we do
motion
it
to
in one,
publish?
Shar? We can do just one. It would
Okay,
be
we can do it in
to
one.
approve the changes and to publish
And to
it,
publish them.
so it becomes effective.
Okay, perfect. Any comments or questions? If not, can we entertain a motion on the floor to approve the ordinance changes and the publishing of them?
I'll make the motion to approve and publish.
Dave Schrupp first, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Park and Rec.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I will touch base on the first two topics on my staff report. Regarding my first topic, there is now a dirt hill at the community center located north of the tennis courts. This is to serve as a sledding hill in the winter months. Creating this hill eliminates the need to haul snow into the community center from various places within the city. Previous years, Ted and his crew went out of their way to spend a lot of hours dragging in snow to the community center so we could have a sledding hill. This ultimately saves time, money, and most importantly, provides fun for all ages during the winter. We still have a few things to work on. We're going to put a staircase going up to the top of the hill, and then we're going to put up some temporary fences to secure the area so all ages are safe on the top of the hill. Second, pickleball fill. If you've been by the community center as of late, obviously you see the sledding hill. It's a pretty big hill. You also see pickleball, or future pickleball, and other possible opportunities that we may come across in the winter months before we start initiating an actual plan. But as of right now, pickleball is in the plan for next spring. We decided to do the fill now because if we didn't, we'd have to let that sit from spring all the way to the end of the fall, so that fill has time to sit, so we have a good solid base for concrete or asphalt or whatever we go with the base of the project. So that wraps up my staff report. I do have something else to mention. In the mail, you might have come across a survey that the Powell Foundation put out. I would just like to go on public record stating that I never viewed the final draft. In the meetings prior to sending out the survey, I had a couple suggestions, a few concerns, and some of those weren't met in the survey. So I'd just like to go on public record saying I never saw the final draft. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Moving on to Public Works.
Good evening. First item on the agenda, there is a recommendation from the Public Works Commission to join MESRB. Stands for Minnesota Economic Science and Economic Review Board. I went to a conference here about a week and a half ago. And how I got invited is the city is one of 100 cities that were targeted by MPCA to start looking at new regulations as far as their effluent standards at the wastewater plant. So I sat and I listened to a lawyer, and then I listened to a scientist, and then we had the little town of Lakefield, Minnesota that came up. The city clerk, population about 1,700 people down Jackson County, way down southern part of the state. They didn't pay attention to what had been stuck into their new permit. Wish they'd have had MESRB beforehand. MESRB would have helped them go through and review this rather than just rubber stamping it. What has happened to this community is they are going to have millions and millions of dollars of debt because of these new regulations. It's going to cost the citizens of those 1,700 people about $160 a month for the next 40 years because they didn't pay close attention to what was in that permit. MESRB is helping to challenge the science behind these things that the state is putting out. They have the lawyers and the scientists to help us in the future. One of the things that we are charged in our permit currently is sulfates. And our plant was never designed to remove sulfates. To do it is very, very expensive. It's basically reverse osmosis plant that you have to install. These people in this little town of Lakefield, they're drinking water. They can drink it out of the faucet under the clean water standards, but they can't flush it down the toilet because it doesn't meet the state of Minnesota's standards. Literally. And that when I talked about that $160 a month that those people paying, that doesn't do anything for the upkeep, paying everybody's wages, all that stuff. That's just paying the debt. How many millions of dollars they're going to have to be. So I would hope that the city would take my recommendation and join MESRB so we may use them in the future for helping us and whatever may come up down the road in the future. Mike and I looked at their calculation sheets. I think it was about $500 a year we looked at, Mike, for this. We would cover it under our regular operation budget this, but I would encourage us to join MESRB. There's a resolution in here, there's a signing of a joint powers agreement. There's several different things. If you agree to this, I will have, or Mike and I will bring it back next week to go through the resolution, or next month, to go through the resolution and all that.
So this is the first time we would be joining this MESRB.
Yeah, and the communities around us, Breezy Point's as a member of it,
Okay?
Pelican Rapids, Brainerd, there's a lot of communities that are already part of this, so.
Okay, okay. Are there any comments or questions for Ted?
Sounds like a great idea.
I think it sounds like a really good idea, too. Kind of protective measures?
Public Works Commission was in favor of it, so.
Public Works was in favor of it? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Dave Nevin is making a motion on the floor to approve the joining of
Second.
Meeser. Brad Nelson, second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. We will bring, like I said, we'll bring that forward to the next month's meeting for the resolution and all the other paperwork with that. Next one is the property owner right behind the existing treatment plant and city shop is looking to sell his property. I think you all have a copy of it in your packets there. I guess it was the recommendation of the council to enter into negotiations to purchase this property. It was, we discussed it at the budget meetings. If we're going to do something or not do something, let's get going and get it done with. So I guess I would like to enter into the negotiations to try to purchase this property, so.
So what are you asking of us, Ted, to, who's going to
Approve-
negotiate it?
Well, that's somebody, I mean, somebody with, I don't have the authority to do it, I don't know if that'd be Mike or who would be the, do the negotiations, or one of the council
Okay.
members, but
Okay. Okay.
what would you think, Mike?
Did
How would you like to
Have
proceed?
Public Works,
They,
Public
they
Works have-
they recommended that we go along with what Ted.
we go into
The only thing,
negotiations?
we're quite a ways off on the value from the county's
Okay.
statement versus what he's asking. You don't have a map, have a drawing of where
Is
this
the
is?
county like 90 or something, or?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So
I
Ted,
have it here.
are you asking that I help negotiate this and enlist Mr. Person to assist with that effort?
Yes.
Okay, so if, we'll, okay, go ahead.
One comment that Mike had at the meeting was this property, you know, the issue we have with the dumping the leaves and the brush and that kind of stuff, this, we have to keep our driveway open in the public works area so this individual can get to his land.
He
And
has
if it-
easement across ours.
Yeah, if it were purchased, then we can secure this area so we can prevent and possibly reopen it down the road and have more room for
Yep.
that type of.
So can we
thing.
make a motion with a limit to it, to the negotiation? Does that make sense?
Well, I don't think you'd want to talk any numbers,
Yeah.
but you could direct us to negotiate and bring something back to the council for consideration.
I move that we elect Mike Linus to begin negotiations on that property.
In front of you, I do have the map.
Okay?
This is the property that we're talking about right here. Week City currently owns everything that I have in yellow. Up to that point. He has, like I said, he has a easement like this across, so it splits our property in two.
So there's a motion on the floor to enter into negotiations, Mike Linus being the lead on that. Is there a second? Gary Heacock, second. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Ted, just one clarification point. Now, our discharge line goes through that property now, is that correct?
Yes, we are currently, our wastewater discharge line from the wastewater plant, there's a current power line that goes right down through here. And our discharge line actually follows that same line, so.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Next, Ted?
Next one is, we have a memo from WSN.
The generator.
See,
Oh, I'm sorry, I got jumped ahead here, I apologize. When we did the modification at the wastewater treatment plant, we had the old generator that was taken out, it's a 150 kW generator. One of the things we wondered about during the budget discussion was installing it at the community center, just as another spot in case of that major disaster. It's kind of nice to have that backup with your community. This building's standalone with its own power generation, the shop is. That would be the other big building that the city currently is involved in, that would be the same thing. We're working with Holden Electric right now for the modifications at the wastewater plant. So I asked them what it would take to modify this generator, install the slab, and put this generator in. Their estimate is $35,000 to install it. And like I said, it's an estimate. It might be a little bit less or a little bit more than that. But I'm wondering what you really want us to do. Do you want us to proceed with that, put that in the budget, the $35,000? Forget it for now, try to sell the old generator? What are the wishes, I guess, of the council?
Was this the extra generator that was going to go to the community center?
Yeah, this is the generator that goes for the, yeah.
Okay.
Seems like a lot for install, huh?
Part of the big problem is that this is a 460-volt, three-phase generator currently, and that the switchgear and that have to be switched out and changed, and there's some rewiring of the generator to make it work. That's where some of the costs come from.
Comments or questions from the council?
Well, I don't know, maybe you should try to sell that one and see what one it costs. Maybe it would be cheaper to do that than to rework the one.
We probably get between $20,000 and $25,000 for this generator with the switchgear that we have. Another used one we probably could buy for about the same price, that might fit our needs better. I mean, we're still going to have a cost putting in the pad and doing all the hookups and all that, but I can do a little more research and bring it forward to you at another
Yeah.
meeting if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Item D is the salt and sand building. You can remember we were back a ways, we had issues, the building was starting to lean to the north quite a bit. And we weren't quite sure what to do, so we hired WSN to take a look at it. They were the initial designers of the building. Right now, we have taken and stockpiled our material to the south side of the building. We are not stockpiling any material to the north side of the building, to which the side it was leaning. The building has come back some.
Perfect.
It's coming back on its own, just loading it to the south side right now.
Stick a couple of props up next to it.
Well, right now, I'm of the mindset not to do anything and just wait and see it for a little bit longer.
I'll make that motion.
I mean, we have a plan, if something comes to be, we have a plan from the engineers that we could take and get priced out, and it could be many different contractors that could do this kind of work for us. But we have a plan, and if it comes back and it's straight and we want to do something, we can move forward, or
Yeah,
just keep watching it for a while. I mean, we know what we're looking for now. We actually have a plumb bob hanging and a bolt, so we're watching it against that bolt head where the plumb bob is, so.
Does
We know what to look for now.
the county pay half of this if we do it?
Yes, well, I mean, yeah, all of this would be 5347 if we'd move forward with this.
I think that's a good idea. Council, to just wait and,
Wait and see.
yep, okay.
I don't think it's gonna, like everybody's telling me, it isn't gonna fall down tomorrow,
Okay,
so.
good.
The last one I have is item E, and it's just another update on where we're at with the treatment plant as of this date. I don't know if Mike has got anything he wants to add to it, but it's just a current update where we're at. We're down to electronics in the plant, some punch list items, a couple pumps that we're still waiting for a little over a year for. But the plant is working well. I shared this earlier at the other meeting with some of the council members. We were running between 30 and 40, 50,000 gallons a day. Last Saturday, it's like you turn the switch off. I think half of our community left. All of a sudden, we're 15 to 20,000 gallons a day, and it's holding there. So everybody didn't like the cold weather and left, so. But otherwise, the treatment plant is doing really well. It's producing the parts that the automation is up, it's all running. We have one more piece, and tomorrow, they're actually supposed to be here to hook that last piece up. Everything should be working well. I encourage you all to come down and take a look at it. It's starting to look like a plant again.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ted.
I got a question for Ted.
Yep.
Okay.
Here a couple months ago, I'm assuming that the Public Works Department was going to look at the assessment policy. I don't think any time limit was set on that. I think that I'd like to see something back on that in the November meeting.
We are working towards that. We've gotten copies of our current assessment policy. We've got examples from the League of Minnesota Cities. It's to the commissioners right now. They have actually formed a group.
You're going to call a meeting, remember?
I'm going to call a meeting when we all could get together
And talk about it.
talk about it, but
That's where we are, in a hurry.
we're always in a hurry, but we're trying. We are working on
I'd
it.
like to
We
see
haven't
that.
forgot about it,
I'd like to see that in November.
Yeah.
okay?
Okay? Sounds good. Anything else for Ted? Thank you.
Thank you.
An update on our Personnel Committee, from our Personnel Committee.
Sure, I can take that. The Personnel Committee is made up of myself, Chief Lee, Mayor Norgard, and Mr. Schrupp. And what we passed out to you this evening, just before the meeting, was what we feel is a pretty good draft of an updated job description. And what we're trying to do is fill the void between the parks and the library with a limited supervisory type position. And so what we would do is we'd be essentially creating a new position for a person that would help in the implementation of programs at the park, similar to what we do now. But we would break up some of the supervision, because we've got roughly, 3 or 4 dozen volunteers. That person would be responsible for getting volunteers for the library and the park, and essentially managing the part-time staff that are hired for both facilities. Because you remember in the past, our park director would make the decisions on the part-time staff, the operational part-time staff, whether it be the front desk or someone working in the library, and the volunteers. And part of this is our attempt to try to put a little bit better structure in place in the Parks, Rec, and Library Department. And when I say that, what I mean is, right now we have a situation where we have staff that can't make or are authorized to make decisions, and we're essentially relying on part-time staff and volunteers to run both of those facilities. And we found ourselves in a situation a couple different times where we had volunteers and very, very part-time staff trying to make decisions that really should have been made by either a building-type supervisor or a leader, if you will, of the volunteers in making decisions that we really shouldn't expect volunteers to make. So we also found ourselves in a position where we had part-time staff without a supervisor in the building, where if things came up where a decision did need to be made at that time, there would be someone there to do it. And we also thought, we didn't really think it was a good idea to put volunteers in an awkward position to make those types of decisions. So what we're trying to do, and this is an experiment, and it might not work, but we think it's a good compromise solution to trying to both appropriately staff the library, to meet the needs of the library and the volunteers, and also meet the needs of the staff in the community center. We've kind of got a lot of different views. We went and sought input from the Parks and Library Commission, said, what would you like to see down there? And we had views from, we need a 4-year degree to librarian from an accredited library with a master's degree in library science. That didn't make sense to us, and it didn't make sense to us to do absolutely nothing. So we said, we need some type of middle-level person that has the ability to make those decisions and on an operational basis do that. The other questions we had that we got from people are saying, well, what about how much time is this person going to spend in the library? I need somebody there 24/7. And we said, maybe a couple days, maybe certain times of the year that makes sense. but it probably doesn't make sense year-round. So what, I sat down with TJ and I said, find a library that's similar to ours and go talk to them. Find out what's working for them, find out what's not working for them, and throw back to them what we're considering doing. So he did that, and he came, it seemed like what we're trying to accomplish made sense. Now, if it doesn't work, we can post a position for a library-specific person on a part-time basis. But right now, in the meantime, until we would do that, we'd like to finish what you started. And when I say that, what TJ has done is I've asked him to get some usage data, comparable usage data and times, who's using the library and when, and how much traffic are we getting, and what makes sense for the hours for us to be open. He's partway through that right now. So we don't need to debate all of this tonight and make a decision, because I know this is the first time the council as a whole is seeing it. Now, we did run this through our labor attorney, because remember, we do have 2 unions, and we want to make sure that we're in compliance with both of those entities. This would be outside of both of those unions, okay? So TJ, I think I've covered everything, but if you have any more specific questions, TJ would be able to answer those for you.
Are there any other questions or comments for either Mike or TJ?
I could give you time between now and our meeting on the 23rd, and, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
If you have any other questions for us, just let us know what your thoughts are.
Another thing Mike and I kind of talked about too, perchance if I'm gone for a week, possibly half a week, just even a day, this would give us the opportunity at the community center to have a supervisor at the community center in case of emergency. Any questions need to be answered. We have that person on staff that has the ability to make a decision.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions or comments for TJ or Mike? Okay, so do we want just to bring this to the agenda next month? Everybody's had time to look it over a little bit?
I think everybody understands the concept.
Yep.
So if you want to take
We don't want to start a search for someone?
Oh, well, I mean, that's up to you guys. If you feel comfortable tonight, we can,
I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah,
With
I
the
think the
structure
library's
and
been without
okay?
Yeah.
this person for long enough, so.
So do we need a motion on that to go ahead and
To approve the description and then one to
And to authorize posting for
authorize? Okay,
position.
okay, so we need 2 motions on the floor. One is to approve the description of the manager of Parks, Rec, and Library.
I'll make the motion to approve it and to begin the hiring process.
Okay, is there a second? I'll go ahead and second that. Any other comments or questions?
The only thing I would, go ahead, I'll wait.
No, you can add your comment before we vote, if you'd like.
We've developed a salary range for that position of roughly 41,000 to 52,000 annualized on that, which kind of fits into the structure we're currently using. We'd want to authorize that at the same time too, the salary range.
Are there any other comments or questions before we vote on the motion on the floor?
We want to add
We
salary.
do want to add that to it.
Yeah, the second one, too.
41 to 52.
Yep.
So,
second that addition?
yes, I'll second that addition. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. TJ, thanks you too.
Next, we go on to our second public forum. No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on the agenda of a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given a 3-minute time limit. Are there any comments from our audience tonight? If not, we'll go on to the city attorney report.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Old business. Is there any old business? Do you want to bring up yours under old business or new business?
I don't know, let's talk about next door.
Okay, so
Whichever
under old
one.
business, Dave, do you want to start that discussion? Briefly what we talked about today?
Well, at the last meeting, the council told me to have Craig go over and look at the building, and he did. And I still am thinking that we should pursue the purchase of that property over there.
Council?
I guess in the earlier meeting, there was commented that there might be some property south of town or something, but I think this location is the best location, whatever the city decides to do. And especially if we phase the work here, and if the fire hall were to take this over and we need that facility to roll over into, it would just, it's right there. So I look for discussion on this.
Council?
Well, we've had two residents that have expressed the same opinion.
We're not going to get an opportunity like this,
No, I know.
this close again. Yeah.
But I think what they're recommending is going to take some time to involve citizen input and to review.
I am afraid that we've exhausted our time frame with Mr. Hineker. I think he's been overly generous. And I believe if we don't do something today, he is going to move on. So if that is the risk, the gamble we want to take, then that's what we'll do.
I'm not sure we've had enough conversation yet, really getting down to more specifics on, what that looks like. If we did purchase the property, then what is the cost of the breakdowns for this? What is the cost of the breakdowns if we decide to move parts of the other municipal buildings? And so I personally just don't think I have enough information yet to make a decision on that large a purchase without having a deeper discussion of looking at all the options and doing a thorough due diligence on it. That's my perspective.
Okay, Ms. Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
There was correspondence going on last January about the purchase of this property. But I thi-
January?
Yeah. April, May, June, July. Finally, in July, I asked if I could pursue the property and negotiate it.
Yep.
And I guess
Yep.
my question is, why did we not, as a council, look at this months ago?
We could have started that conversation in January if somebody had brought it up.
Well, I don't know that anybody was aware of it other than yourself at the time.
Well, I didn't even know, but I didn't know if the property was or was not going to be available. There were brief discussions on it. And so we knew that Mr. Heinecker was looking.
There were offers to get together and talk about it. I mean, I know there were.
Okay?
And I don't understand why it was dropped.
Well, do you remember our last conversation, which was probably early spring, Mike, with Mr. Heinecker and Mr. Berglund?
April 11th, I believe.
April 11th?
Yeah.
Well, again, at that time, we didn't have a firm price, or we didn't have a public purpose for the use
But
of
why
that
wouldn't, as a
property
council, we talk
at
about
that
that?
time.
Why wouldn't we, isn't that what this body is for, is to discuss that kind of stuff, the future of the town? It really irritates me that it never was brought to this forum. And I don't understand it.
Okay.
So now we are at the 11th and a half hour. We're going to stall it again and kick it down the road.
Well, council, what's your opinion on it? What do you want to do?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we buy the property next door. And the price is $900.
Is there a second on that?
In my opinion, it's somewhat overpriced, and I wouldn't pay more than $750 for it.
I think if I may, if you're
Tax
interested
value
in-
is $693 or something like
I
that.
think if you're interested in pursuing that property, you could direct staff to negotiate that. But if you so list a price right now, you've really taken your ability to negotiate that off the table.
I have got a appraisal of that property right here
What's the
from
date of the appraisal, Mr. Nevin?
2010.
That's too old.
what I was just going to say.
That's too old.
Well, it maybe is, but I don't think times have got worse since 2010. And this is on 1.89 acres.
There's a motion on the
Is there,
table you need to decide.
is there a second on that motion? If not, the motion dies for lack of a second. So let's regroup and take a different, look at other options and maybe take a different approach.
I apologize, Mr. Henniker, for your delay, or our delay on your behalf. Okay.
Yes, yes.
First of all, I'd like to apologize if there has been a lot of confusion about the disposition of this property, when it's available, who we talk to about it, and things like that. And I understand the council's position. This is a big decision. And I understand that you have a lot on your plate to decide what suits the city best. After hearing the discussions tonight, and recognizing that more time may be needed you had an evaluation of the buildings that just indicated that they're in good condition. Nice facilities, they would last a long time. But I would just like to extend an offer to go ahead and have somebody review the property if you need some extra time to take a look at how the properties might be utilized, what kind of cost the city would be looking at to try and make them usable for your purposes. I haven't talked to my wife, but I'm sure she would agree that we could give the city a little more time to walk through some of that exercise.
Well, that's extremely generous of you.
That's not a problem. We really, really would love for the city to have this property, but at the same time, I can't sit on it forever. To get it marketable, I have some work that we would be doing, and then it would not be at that level any longer. That's the only problem. As far as the tax, what they evaluate at, I thank God every year for that low level. But the property, that evaluation for $1.5 million was, I know it's old. I don't think it probably changed much, and there's 3 more acres than there were before. So I just wanted to offer that to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Heinecker.
Mr. Henniker, what did you pay for that other 3 acres? Is that a fair question to ask?
$50,000 an acre.
And how long ago?
2 years ago?
So you paid 300, or 150, yeah. So it's a 5+ acre chunk right next to this property right here that would serve the city for 100 years or 500 years. I just think it's a shame that.
So, all right, so the motion was defeated for lack of a second. However, I think we need to reconvene maybe at our budget meeting on October 22nd and have a further discussion on this. Does that make sense?
You're not going to have any numbers or anything by then.
Okay, so,
That's what you're looking for. It's not going to
well,
happen.
I think it's not only numbers, but I think we have to look at, when we think of what's best for the city, like you say, in 20, 30, 50 years, what does that look like? And as somebody, Mr. Anderson said tonight, we haven't had a lot of input from our community yet. We've heard comments, but this is a big deal for us in Cross Lake. And for us not to be able to spend the time and looking at all the options and seeing it where it's going to take us for future use, to me, it just makes sense that we have to be a little wise and have further discussion on it.
I have a comment. Gary and I spent some time with Chip walking through his facilities here, and And I think it would be wonderful if we had an open house for the public to do the same thing, because they can really see the issues that exist back here. I mean, in 15 minutes, he explained all of the hardships that they're dealing with and how hard it is. And I guess today, I believe that there's no way the fire department or the police department could go over there. I mean, that just doesn't seem to be, but there is a chance that admin could be there. And I know some people have said that, oh, we don't want to separate them, but, you know, maybe we can do that. But maybe there's something that we can do to go and evaluate. In the meantime, would admin work there, and would anything else, you know, in your group, just to see?
And I think those are the conversations that we
You know,
really
not to
have
try to
have,
fit
yeah.
the whole, you aren't going to fit the fire department over there, or
No,
the
the fire
police
department
department.
could stay here.
And the police department, I think, you know, but we could look at admin over there, and, you know, there's a gym over there. If pickleball's a big deal, there's a gym we already can get. But it's to the point where you almost have to use the place, and we have to put our heads on our, you know, right, figure out what we can do.
Yep.
Big thing is, how are we going to get public comment on it? I'm an old firefighter, and I understand Chip's dilemma a lot better than I do some of the other projects that we've got going. But something has to be done there.
Right. The tour
And I
would
don't
help.
know, unless we're going to have an hour public comment before the 22nd meeting or something like that, to get public comment, you know, it's kind of sticker shock for the whole thing, but if you take it out over the number of years and whatever else, and it would be nice to see from Mike what it's going to do to the budget, how we're going to handle it, and so on.
You have that as an action item, don't you? So you can look at the finances so we can understand the bottom line.
Well,
For the
right.
big number right now, at least, so we have some high end?
Yeah.
All right, so he's got that on his list, to-do list. And perhaps we can have open houses? That Chip or the staff could organize, so people don't all come at one time. They would come in small groups, maybe sign up and see what we're talking about.
For those people interested, yes.
Make sense? Not make
Yep.
sense? So
So we can put a,
how do we do the admin only over there? Anybody agree with that or not?
It'll make a great temporary structure to put people while this gets bulldozed, while you build a proper building before you spend a dime putting it and making that willy-nilly. The value over there is the land. The buildings would make a great temporary structure until something else gets done properly, and then those get bulldozed. Going over there and modifying that stuff, I'm just going to still stand. I agree with the purchase of the property.
Right.
I'm all behind the purchase of the property at the right price. But don't sit here and keep talking about we're going to put half a building over there and put $1.5 million remodeling that and blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding? If you're looking 30 years down the road, then look 30 years down the road and do it right the first time.
3 years down the road before we do this or
Right,
something. So
right.
it's an-
Right, it's the land. It's still the land that has the value. Just, my opinion is, don't get off on what the building's gonna be worth, what we can do with the building, what we can modify the building into, can we add garage doors? It's a good temporary structure till the right thing gets done. It's the land that has the value. So do you want the land at that value? That's the question you all have to ask yourselves. The buildings are beside the point. Focus on the land and the value of the land. The buildings offer you nothing, other than more money to tear them down when you get other things done correctly. That's my opinion.
any other comments or questions?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Before we make this motion to adjourn, can we, Shar and Mike, look at our calendars and, not tonight, but look at some dates and maybe figure out what this would look like over the next 3 to 4 weeks? And Mr. Heinecker, would that work for you? 3 to 4? Okay, okay.
Can I just make one comment?
Yep, come on up.
I I just sincerely appreciate council, mayor, your time and consideration, like Paul said, and I guess I should state my name. My name is BJ Berglund. I've grown up in Cross Lake. Right now I'm a citizen in Jenkins, but I love this town. And and in any case, the reason I'm up here is I was at the Five Bugles meeting, and that was very informative and helpful, and I know there were a lot of questions, and I know there's a lot of things for you to consider. One of the things that just came to my mind, and I think as we're trying to give the Five Bugles some direction, if we did move forward with the Five Bugles structure that they proposed at the 40-some thousand square feet, does this property, the current land that we're sitting on right now, is there enough property there for that structure? It would be interesting, I think, helpful for that decision-making process, so,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, was there someone?
I was just wondering if there's an opportunity for public input on this whole thing. We're talking about spending a lot of money.
You can
I
come,
didn't know.
you can come right up. This is a big deal, so.
Richard Idy, citizen and business owner in Cross Lake. I just think before any decision gets made, whether it's buying the land, whether it's building a new city hall, I think this is something that there should definitely be as much public input as you can get on. I mean, if I was sitting up here as a city council member, I wouldn't want that on my shoulders without knowing exactly what the city wanted, you know? I mean, we're talking about spending a lot of money, which will, you know, I was at the budget meeting a month or so ago that, you know, there isn't a lot of room in the budget right now as you know, as the way things are. If we start talking about spending, you know, whether it's $2 million or $15 million, it's going to impact the property taxes of everybody here in town. And, you know, I just would like to see there a way to be those of us that are, you know, going to be impacted by these decisions, that we can get our input in to some degree.
Yep, good, thank you. Any last comments or questions? Did we get a second on that motion to adjourn, Shar? Nope. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.